Welcome to the new Overlords Podcast, a video game show where I'm joined every week by the massively multi-talented Sema. Hello there, Sema.
I do like me a massively online, whatever, MMO.
We are going to talk about MMOs today. Have you been playing MMOs, Sema? I know you have.
I have. I'm an MMO player. That's what I am.
And to be clear, so we're going to go over MMOs today. We're going to be going over MMORPGs. There's a whole class of things that people are calling MMOs today that are massively multiplayer, but they're not RPGs. They're not MMOs. Like when you say MMO as an MMO player, they're not like Fortnite. I guess you could potentially have, moderately large numbers of players and massive numbers of players, not all on the same map. And there's, you got things like Destiny. I wouldn't really call Destiny an MMO, but a lot of people do. And
Yes,
you could call it an
including
MMO.
Destiny. Yeah.
And then you've got other MMOs like New World who are trying to not call themselves an MMO anymore. But we're going to talk about MMOs. We're going to talk about MMOs and their roadmaps, what we're looking at for 2025, what that's looking like. Yeah, the ones we mostly have played or do play or our, AIE community plays. We'll also talk about MMOs that are in early access that are interesting and are potentially even playable right now and in 2025. And then at the very end, we will look at some of what the roadmap is for things that are in development. And of those things, we may get glimpses of them in 2025, but we may not even get glimpses. So there are some exciting things that are in and out of the game development consciousness that we'll be able to get to as well. But I think we could kick that off. Thank you for being here. The MMT, the massively I tried to find an O, like massively multi-talented orator or something, but it just didn't work because then you could have been an MMO yourself. But I guess that kind of works. It'll just call you the MMT, the massively multi-talented Sema.
What was that MMT?
MMT, yeah. All right, let's jump right into it though.
Good news, everyone!
First up, the MMO. I'd say there's probably two these days that we're playing the most. The one that brought us to the table, right, for the last 10 years,
Yes.
and the one that we probably play more than any others, and I still play more than any others, is Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
So Star Wars: The Old Republic, you and I are probably both up to speed on this one, so we can toss it around back and forth. But Keith did do on the 20th, December 20th, he did do one of those executive producer letters.
Yes.
Uh,
Being executive producer.
his letters and those SWTOR executive producer letters are good, but they're mostly focused backward looking.
Yeah,
And this one
they
is
are.
as well, which is fine. It's sort of like a celebration, a reminder of all the things that have gone in, even potentially recently. I mean, some of this was the update that had gone in just, a week or two before. So it was good to get a recap of all of that. He didn't talk too much about futures, though.
No, he just gave a little, just a little like
Really not at all.
happening.
He said,
Yes.
I don't know. I don't even know why they bothered to do it. It was like the redacted. He literally typed in redacted twice in the sentence when he said, yes, oh yeah. And then, of course, right on the horizon, wait, how does Keith talk? Should I try to do a Keith voice? And then, of course, right on the horizon of, it's a little bit, he's got a little bit of rougher voice. This is not him at all, but I'm going to go with this. And then, of course, right on the horizon of 7.6.1 is 7.7. Really looking forward to talking about our plans here as we have a new redacted coming with some new redacted, the continuation of our story, along with a host of other things to tell you about. Last but not least, we can't forget that 2025 is the next Star Wars celebration. 2025 is just around the corner, and so I'm excited as a Star Wars fan to see what the next year holds for all of us. But is that what I actually said? We can't
That was
forget,
a weird sentence.
we can't forget that 2025 is the next Star Wars celebration 2025. There's a typo
Yeah.
there. But yeah, so he, redacted and some new redacted and the continuation of the story. Okay, so
I'll tell you what those 2 redacteds are.
yes, Sema, what are they?
One is a new romance, and one is a new, what's Bessie called? What do they call that? Venture.
Venture. Okay, so these are your.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you? This is a guarantee, or,
Yes.
or this is your. Yeah, you are the
This is a
prognosticator of prognosticators, as we
Sema
explained last week.
guarantees.
So Sema
new-
says.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, they have been in recent years sticking closer and closer to a really regular release cycle, and it's been working really well. And that is two quote unquote major updates and 2 quote unquote minor updates per year on a quarterly basis. So November was the last major update. We didn't get all of it, so let's talk about that in just a second. 3 months later, then we'll get the next minor update. So that will be March, and then or end of February, beginning of March, because May will be the next major update. And then another quarterly update after that, a .1 update, and then November will be the next major update. So we should expect a May update and a November update this year from them. So 2 questions I have. One is, and I just forgot the first one that I said we'll talk about. Oh, when are we getting the rest of 7.6, which was the story? So we didn't get the story. The speculation, of course, is that the voice actor strike, which SWTOR relies so heavily on in such a great way in so many languages, that was not available to them.
Right. And also they probably want to honor it.
Yes. So in that way, they pushed off the story elements, and I'm fine with that, making sure that we can get the quality of voice acting and storytelling that we expect out of the game, because that is the game. But when are we going to get that? So I haven't heard them saying, like here, even when they've been talking about like 7.6.1, I don't hear them saying, and you'll definitely get the story then.
Right, because I believe the strike is ongoing.
Yeah, that's rough. So if we're not even going to get the 7.6 story until the May update, then I'm afraid we won't get the end of this story arc until December at the earliest, or November, the November update at the earliest. I was hoping the May update would be the end of this particular story arc. How the Hedda story would be wrapped up, Malgus would be wrapped up, or I don't think that's going to happen.
No, well, for one thing, they're not going to wrap up Malgus.
Well, not wrap up, but get us on to 8.0. When are we going to have 8.0? Is I was hoping then in November we would get an 8.0 release.
Right.
So you tell me, Sema, because you know these things in your future brain that you have. Are we going to get an 8.0 in November?
I think we'll get an 8.0 announcement in November. I know you don't like it.
I want more. More, I tell you. Yeah. I kind of think it's trending in that direction as well. But we're getting sort of long in the tooth here on the current storyline, which was cool and interesting and new when the Mandalorian was hot and that kind of thing. But we've been sort of waiting for it to wrap up here
right. We want to get back to the Malgus story. Like I know there's a number of people in the guild who are like sort of, they've lost interest in the Mandalorian side of the story.
Yeah.
And would rather have the Malgus stuff. So
yeah,
I can see that.
I liked all of it, and I liked how where it was sort of like how it sort of came to a head with that like big battle with the hidden chain and all of that. But now the hidden chain's just sort of still floating around.
And the fact that Shae Vizsla, the fact that Shae Vizsla is basically the one who released Malgus is the opportunity for the 2 stories to come together.
Right, exactly. And for
spoiler alert,
a bunch of transition to happen, and I wanted that to happen then in 7.7. So I guess there would still have to be one more chapter for the wrap up of, at least one more chapter for the wrap up of whatever then Malgus Unchained is going to do. So we'll see. As you said, they have an opportunity to do other fun things as well. The kind of things that we expect them to release, like the date nights, which is those sort of like side story content with all of your companions, and being able to have a little bit of ongoing side elements with them. So they have 2 new systems in place over the course of the past year. One is the ventures. Having a new venture would be interesting. They made a big deal of putting the system in place. I do hope they take advantage of it. Yet there's still PvP and GSF and flashpoints and uprisings. There's a whole lot of systems.
So yeah, right. I agree.
I don't want to like lose all of those because there's a new system to feed.
No, I feel like we're going to get galactic seasons, new galactic seasons, no matter what.
Yes, we'll get new PvP seasons and new galactic seasons, which are the Game Pass, the Battle Pass system for Star
Wars.
And
I kind of feel like we're going to get new romances no matter what, too. So
that's the date nights.
Yeah. Sorry, the date nights. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just have to see what else they tack on the outside. So the 2 new systems were ventures and then the dynamic events. So they could spread dynamic events to more planets. That's still significant work to make that happen.
Yes, and I feel like they could do that. Yeah, I don't feel like that would be that would. I don't feel like that would earn a redacted. That's why I said it was a new venture. But actually, date night might not earn a new redacted either, come to think of it.
It shouldn't. Because they've said that they'll continue to release those.
I don't want to say it's a new operation because that would just be wrong.
that first redacted, our plans here as we have, talking about our plans here as we have a new redacted coming. Oh, let that be Operation. So that's the raid content for Star Wars: The Old Republic. Let that first redacted be an Operation, and then some new redacted would be dynamic events or something. I would like that.
So I did buy the new what's it called? The new package.
The new deal, the subscription deal
that
they've got going
on. It's called Master the Fight Starbolt Edition Bundle, which was $99. I had to time it very carefully, but I put it on my calendar for early January, and I did. So I typically do the 6-month subscription.
Yep.
So to buy this thing was only like $10 or $15 more than my 6-month. And I'm here to report that it worked flawlessly. I bought the thing, and now my now it just says the next time it'll bill me like is 6 months out. So it's just how I wanted it to work because I didn't want to pay it twice. And I didn't want to pay it twice and then get a year. So So that's why I put it on my calendar for January. So now I have the new speeder and basically the 6 months of time in the cartel coins.
Yeah, that's cool. I did not get it. I kind of wish. Yeah, I don't know. I'm over it. I'm over any FOMO. So I did not get it. My subscription is running just fine. So this is the Master of the Fight Starbolt Edition. If you do want to get in on a little 6-month subscription, it is a pretty good deal because you're paying like an extra $10, but you're getting a lot for it. You're getting like a couple extra dies, this really cool mount, the Vectron 240R Starbolt, and a big stack of cartel coins.
Right, and it only ends up being a little bit more than the actual 6-month subscription. So you're basically getting all this stuff.
If it wasn't work to do this, I would do it. But and by work I mean more than one mouse click right now on this page. See, like I'm clicking and it's not happening. So I'm done. I'm out.
I get you.
This next one, I'm going to lean on you for because I have been out of this particular world for longer than I would have liked. And I do want to keep going back. And I did spend time in 2024 in World of Warcraft, but you've got the you've got the notes here. You know what's going on with the World of
Yes.
Warcraft
So
roadmap.
here's what's going on
lay it on me.
in WoW in 2025. The first thing is coming up in January is going to be another Plunderstorm, which Plunderstorm is it's basically a PvP event, almost like what's it called when you everybody fights to the end, those kind of games?
Yes, a battle royale.
Battle royale type of PvP thing. And here's the thing. I think this is really positive because it gives the PvP people something to do. But also, WoW and Blizzard in their brilliance, they also have this thing called the trading post, which is a way every month that you gain currency so that you can buy different cosmetic things. And from the trading post, they will have whatever you can get from doing this PvP event, there'll be some version of it recolored or whatever in the trading post.
Okay.
So it's weirdly anti-FOMO right now. Like I really, really liked when I first saw the Plunderstorm last year. I liked the sort of pirate outfits and the things you could get. But I'm very happy that I was able to get a pirate outfit from the trading post. So I don't feel like I'm going to miss out by not doing this Plunderstorm, which makes the Plunderstorm even more fun for the actual PvP player because there's not a bunch of people like me just trying to do, just trying to, trying to do the least.
Yeah, they're not having to carry the people that are just in there just to get the currency. And the people who want the currency aren't feeling like they have to do something they don't want to do to get the thing that they want.
Right. It also makes me speculate on when the next remix will be because in 2024 they had a Plunderstorm and then they had a remix.
Yes.
And a remix is a PvE event where you go back to a particular X pack and then you play in a weirdly changed way that X pack, which I found was super fun. So now I have that to look forward to, although it's not on the roadmap for 2025.
I do not see it on their roadmap. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe it takes them longer to do that kind of thing, and maybe we'll have to wait till 2026 to get another remix. Because they've got a lot going on in 2025 still.
I mean, I think the next remix is going to be Warlords of Draenor, which I think I'm the only person who thinks that because Warlords of Draenor, that X-Pack, has this reputation for being the one that everyone hated, but I loved it. I had so much fun in WOD, as we affectionately call it. But I can see remix going there. So that's another prediction. But going back to 2025, right now we're in season 1 of The War Within. So season 2 is coming up late winter, which I'm thinking is going to be late February. Because we're not even close to having that now.
Yeah.
But that's going to include a new zone, a new raid, a new dungeon, and new delves, which I'm looking forward to, but I also have trepidation about because I'm used to the old delves. So am I going to be? I'm going to have
a new delve or a new kind of is it changing the old delves or?
No, I don't think they'll change the old delves. I think that in the new zone there'll be delves.
Oh, okay.
So we have 2 or 3 delves in every of the 4 current zones in this expansion. Now we're getting another zone. Maybe it'll have 2 more delves.
Cool. Well, I think people like those, and I think that's a good. Yeah, do more of. Are you saying you don't want it though because you've got your delve grind all set?
Yeah, I'm saying I'm in that part of the we're in that part where I kind of understand everything. I know how it goes, and I'm kind of a little nervous that we have new delves that have to be new spells and new things to avoid, and how do I be successful in this one? I'll have to learn,
Yeah.
But another thing that's coming
Learning is for losers.
is there's going to be a new riding system. So
yeah, I saw you put that in the notes, and it's got a backronym which is DRIVE. What does that stand for?
I have no idea, but so in Dragonflight, the X-Pack that was called Dragonflight, they introduced dragon riding, right? So that's a style of flying that's way more active and interactive than the old style of flying. So you can't just like point yourself somewhere and then do something else on another screen when you're dragon riding. You have to go, or else you'll run out of energy and crash. This drive is a new way of doing ground mounts. So you'll have like, I don't know, like if you don't control it right, you'll like slide, you'll shift off the side of the where you anyway. It'll be something that we have to learn the skills of. And part of it is the new zone Undermined, which is going to be which is the Goblin capital. I guess we're going to uncover the Goblin capital. There's no flying there.
Okay.
Instead, we're getting this new riding system. So, well, I mean, that's what we assume. There's no flying there. We'll see.
Right.
So I don't think I personally am going to like this, but we'll see. Like we'll see. Maybe I will. But it's going to be a way of doing super fast ground mount type travel.
Okay. Okay. So maybe it will be really fast, and you'll be able to like, but you will.
Maybe I'll love it. Yeah.
And goblin wise, you'll explode if you do it wrong, or you'll be, your car will be sliding off the road.
I mean, I don't mind exploding. Yeah.
There's yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm interested in it. We'll see. I don't think I will like it, but I'm open-minded because maybe I won't. Maybe I will. And then there's also going to be new UI updates to the Warband stuff. I don't know what that's going to involve, but Warband is their word for the things that allow you to combine all your characters. Like it's how you do the storage that all your characters can access, and it's how you know whether or not you have done a particular quest on anyone in your Warband. They're going to expand somewhat how every X pack is going to have more reps that are Warbound. Like right now, only Dragonflight and the War Within factions / reps count for your whole Warband. Earlier ones, you still have to get character by character.
Interesting. I think that's brilliant, and they should have done that a decade ago.
Another thing that's weirdly coming up weird to me that's coming up in 2025 is a revisit of Horrific Visions. And Horrific Visions was something we had in BFA, I believe, Battle for Azeroth, which was a number of X packs back, where you went into this quote unquote horrific vision of Stormwind or
like the
Orgrimmar.
Upside Down.
Yes, like the Upside Down, and you had to go in and you had to kill bosses, but you had to kill all this trash to get there, and there were achievements around it and everything. I did it, and I got all the achievements, or most of them.
I did it a lot too. I remember.
It was, and I don't want to use the word Souls-like, but it was the kind of thing where you had to learn exactly what was happening so that you could do them over and over and over and get
almost more roguelike, but yeah, exactly. You had to like have your pattern and like run through the level. It's like, yeah, you had to like have a strategy and run through the level and hit your points. Like if you wanted like the most out of it, because there was timers and things like that too. And you had to like build up, counters to get to the Boston time. And yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get into Horrific Visions this time because I got way too into it last time.
That's interesting. So is it going to be is it going to be integrated into the current story? Is this like the Void is now causing these to happen again, or
good question.
Or is it going to be in Classic? This is all War Within. This is all this is all.
Yeah, this is still War Within.
Yeah, crazy.
Still Xalatath. So, but I am kind of interested in the next thing in that same time frame, which is the Children's Week update. And Children's Week is an event that happens every year, and it's very, to my way of thinking anyway, very pet oriented. So when I see Children's Week update, to me that means pets I don't already have that I can go for. So I'm looking forward to that.
Interesting.
There is another
I feel like
thing.
They've updated that like once every 2 years almost. Haven't they updated that quite a bit before?
They updated it for various X packs, but I don't know that they updated it for Dragonflight.
Maybe it was small updates along the way too, like you no longer have to drag your adopted child into PvP to get one of the objectives done, which was kind of rough. Having your orphan watching you get murdered over and over again. Really scarring.
I mean, I did get that achievement, but I feel like I really lucked out because I went there one day when a bunch of people wanted it, and like the Horde players and the Alliance players stood around the
traded off.
And traded off. I'm like, thank God for that.
Yeah.
So that's coming, and then the next sort of minor release is going to have new story, new quests, new content, and some system updates, as well as a time walking bonus event, which is called Turbulent Timeways. And we have that actually going on right now, so I guess it will happen again. But what Turbulent Timeways is it's like 5 or 7 weeks of time walking week back to back to back to back. And time walking is an event where you can go back in time and do dungeons and raids from an old X pack. And it's kind of brilliant because it allows people to play the old content and get current rewards.
Great. Cool.
And Turbulent Timeways is has an extra layer on it, which apparently if you do enough time walking dungeons every week for 5 weeks, then you get a bumblebee mount, which
bees.
I know bees. I'm pretty pro.
Is there already a bee mount in the game?
There already is a bee mount that you could get a BFA.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a better bee mount, but like doing 5 or whatever it is dungeons a week for 4 weeks is way easier than that grind was to get that bee mount.
Well, you got to ask yourself one question then, Sema. Do you like jazz? Bees.
I do like jazz.
Bee mount. That's a Barry B. Benson.
Yes.
Bee movie quote. Cool.
So all of this, and we're only up to the summer in WoW.
Yeah. See, this is why when somebody says it's going to be the next WoW killer, that there's such a big hill to climb, because it's not, have you made a game that has has nice mechanics and graphics like WoW, but this is what Blizzard does. This is what Blizzard brings to the table.
It's just a juggernaut of content.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So
good
in
luck.
The summer, then
when we talk about these other MMOs coming that say,
another new zone,
oh,
another new raid, another new dungeon.
Wow.
Also, that's when season 3 is going to start, and also when we kind of expect to see a reveal for the next X pack, which is called Midnight.
At the end of summer, I see the little flag there, and this, we talked about this last week. That's the expansion reveal, not the expansion. And I kind of thought it was maybe coming in 2025, but this makes sense that it would. I mean, there's just so much. There's probably still like current story, and you don't want it to be done too quickly necessarily.
No, I don't. I mean, I'm feeling the rush already because we're trying to get ahead of the curve in our raid team, and I don't want even season 1 to be over yet.
Yeah.
And now this is talking about season 3.
It's weird. If I was deep into WoW still, I would also want the lull to come so that I could go and like play classic and the, and these other modes and the remixes and the plunder storms and stuff. If you do it too quick, I can't play any of that stuff.
So I feel like we are in like, and maybe this is what they intend, but right now I feel like we are in like a mini lull, a mini lull. And I feel like, I think I wrote this down somewhere in the notes, that Siren Isle, which is the new content that we're working through right now, was like the perfect content to release during the holidays, which is a busy time for everyone, because it had very low requirements for getting where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Like there's a weekly quest, but you can do it in under an hour, and then you're done for the week.
Nice.
And I personally and other people that I know have completed the meta already for this zone, which means we got a mount for that, which means we could possibly have completed the entire meta for the War Within so far, and we got a mount for that. And Yeah. So like there's been a little bit each week. And like I did it this morning or yesterday. I forget when I did it. I think it was this morning. I went to the Siren Isle and I did my sort of weekly chores. And I was kind of in my mind putting it off because I wanted to do some other more fun, quote unquote, more fun stuff. But once I got there and got the quest and started working my way around the island and doing things, I'm like, you know what? I'm having fun.
Yeah.
So
Good.
yeah, it was awesome. So that's what's going on right now. It's a very sort of light requirement, which is perfect for the holiday season.
Yeah.
It's almost like they know us. They've
Yeah.
learned something.
There's one extra little flag there at the end there I wanted to ask about, and I don't know what you know yet, but that's the housing, right? That little
Yeah, so that's the end of the year. It's actually their word winter sort of kind of goes over the end of the year into the next year. Like they're saying winter, but
Okay.
we're in the winter of 2024 really. So it's so up until February-ish. But yeah, so that's when we expect to see maybe a pre-patch for Midnight and something about player housing.
Interesting.
I
Because
don't know if
they
it's
kind
gonna
of
be a
teased that. They
reveal
kind of
or if
put
we
just
can
like the one
start with
little
it. Yeah,
right. And nobody knows, and everybody's got a lot of speculation. It's going to be tough
I
for them
don't know.
because I think the expectations are going to be high, especially since they said weird things like, "This is our most complicated system we've ever built." And so,
I actually can't I don't know. I mean, like, I'd be happy literally, I think I'd be happy if they just did something with garrisons to make them relevant.
I still like garrisons. I thought that was a good
Yeah, and
system, and
garrisons, it's from 1,000 X packs ago, but I still visit mine.
if
I
there was a
mean,
way
bigger than
to
them.
like even do more customization of your garrison and like more building and more decoration, I think that would be great. It's
Yeah,
I don't know what
yeah,
else they're gonna do,
yeah,
but
decoration. Yeah, that's probably why it's hard. Like, your garrisons, you could decorate, but really only by saying, "Okay, turn on Christmas decorations," or "Turn
yes, really
on."
just like a one button reskin
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
of the buildings, but you could still shuffle buildings around and stuff of your little crafting buildings and things like that a little bit. But yes, but even there, I go with that system, but have a lot more of like building skins, and I want my garrison to be a blood elf architecture.
Right.
Release alternate sort of like just reskin the whole zone, the whole mini zone that you're in. It doesn't fit with it being the Warlords of Draenor garrison on Draenor, but maybe just lift and shift the system to some pocket dimension or whatever, like other
Right.
games do, and you could have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like I have no idea what they're doing. I'm totally open to whatever it is. Like I know people have said, "Well, I hope we can make our own towns, or I can hope we can be close to each other, or we can do this thing with the guild, or whatever, whatever." And I'm like, I don't I don't really have a preference. I'm just curious to see what it's going to be, and I'm sure I will love it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of games that have interesting player housing, another of the big MMOs that we certainly are attached to and have played quite a bit in the past is Elder Scrolls Online. They have pretty good player housing in Elder Scrolls, and they continue to support it and add new houses. Their housing, you can't build, but you can decorate a lot. And some of their decorations are getting, better and better and cooler. And then you can own like all of the houses, and all of the houses are pocket dimensions. So the outside of the house exists in the zone, and then when you go to it, you sort of like walk through the gate. You load into your pocket dimension version of that. So it's allows you to do a whole bunch of customization inside there, and it's more than just the house itself. It's got a little area on the outside, and I know that on their roadmap for 2025, they've got more of these coming. The other thing that I love that they do, and this comes with all of their seasons and stuff, is one of the things that you get a lot is decorations. They added a system with some of the decorations, like You can have your mount, you can have a bunch of mounts. There's more mounts coming. Look, there's the get a new mount with the GeForce LAN mission coming up in January. All right, that's going on right now, I guess. You can take your mount and you can trace a path in your house area, and the mount will walk that path. And you can do this with like human companion type decorations as well. So you can really kind of liven up things and make it, pathing around. Star Wars: The Old Republic, how we've got some of the NPCs that you can add as decorations into your stronghold. The ones that like have a little bit of an animation where they sort of like walk back and forth and that kind of thing. I really like those. And this is sort of a more advanced version of that. But yeah, so Elder Scrolls Online, you haven't played it recently, have you, Sema?
No.
One of the things that did come up with Elder Scrolls Online, some of the recent news was, this age verification. I just clicked on the website. Does anyone know my birthday in the chat room? Not that it really cares, but they did make an announcement that they're somewhat changing up the schedule of how their content works. And a lot of people read into that they're sort of slowing down content quite a bit. So there's a little bit of consternation over what's going to happen to the content schedules for Elder Scrolls in 2025. That remains to be seen, how much it does actually slow down. They have been on a very rapid schedule of high quality content over time. But that will change to some degree in 2025, and everybody's sort of like waiting to see how that shakes out. Nobody knows exactly why. I think they wanted to change the emphasis of things that they, rather than just like slotting in chapter after chapter, expansion after expansion, they wanted to shift things up a little bit and be able to revise some of the existing systems and put more of their work focus into that rather than just like snapping in additional chapters. That's one of the things they said. Another thing that there is speculation on is Zeus. How do you pronounce this? I heard somebody call it Zeus, but I always called them ZOS, which is the publisher and maker of Elder Scrolls Online. They are on the hook, and we're going to talk about this in the second half, for potentially creating a whole brand new MMO with new IP. So it's ZeniMax. Oh, it's just ZeniMax. I don't know why I was confused there. It is. It's ZeniMax. So because they're also doing that, some of the speculation is, well, some of the resources may be coming off of that content schedule grind for Elder Scrolls Online to be working on potentially the new ZeniMax MMO. So we'll see as far as that goes, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the second half, what that is, but that's just broad speculation right now. Otherwise, Elder Scrolls continues to be a great game. It's got a lot going for it. Their event schedule is quite solid and looking really good. Their additional content that they continue to add to the game is always high quality. Their cosmetics and decorations and housing is really good. I do expect we'll continue to see a lot more of that. This is their 10-year anniversary in 2025 as well. So it's another of these
fantastic
long-running MMOs. Yeah, so congrats to them. I really liked my time, and I was deep into Elder Scrolls Online for quite a while. And of the MMOs that I would potentially, if you said you have to go back and pick up another MMO to play, this would be high on my list. It's a very high quality, a very good one. So we'll have to see how that goes. We do have a big group in Alea Iacta Est, our gaming community, that plays in here and has weekly events and continues to have a good time in Elder Scrolls Online, now going on 10 years. So that's great. Next on the list, what do you know about what's going on in Final Fantasy lately, Sema?
I mean, Final Fantasy continues to just be a fantastic game.
Yes, it's huge. It's huge. It's one of the top 3, and it's debatable on people will say whether it or WoW from time to time are sort of taking over the top position. The third, of course, being RuneScape. So,
right.
which is a whole nother can of wax, ball of worms, and is not even in the list of things that we're talking about today. Though we did talk about Brighter Shores and RuneScape a couple episodes ago. I don't have much visibility into that, and I don't know why, because it's such a big thing. But Final Fantasy is huge. Now, Final Fantasy is in a little bit of a weird spot right now because the hardcore fan base has been a little bit less enthusiastic about this latest expansion that they're in the middle of called Dawn Trail. They didn't really like how Dawn Trail started out as much. And they didn't like sort of like the hardcore, the themes of Dawn Trail as much as the hardcore story driven, Final Fantasy story that they've been living the last 2 to 3 expansions, especially. So with that, everyone is hoping that they can get Dawn Trail back on track. There will continue to be more interesting content associated with Dawn Trail that will be coming out for the rest of this year, as far as I know. So that's going to really be the opportunity for Final Fantasy to continue to be a big thing and continue to grow on Dawn Trail. I haven't heard any rumblings yet. What's up?
I have faith.
Oh, I do too. Exactly. And I would also think that I'm not very deep into where all of this feedback is coming from. I know a lot of people that have had a ton of fun with Final Fantasy XIV in 2024, though, regardless of whatever kind of vocal minority might be pushing a discussion around the idea that Dawn Trail wasn't the greatest. They had a very high bar to reach for. The idea of Dawn Trail was supposed to be to take it down a notch, and maybe they succeeded in that. And in doing that, the people that had that super, super high expectation of story and quality coming from what Final Fantasy brings to the table got a little disappointed. Another interesting thing, though, to keep an eye on, somewhat related, and it is MMO, is there will be, and I think it's in development, so I don't know if it's going to come and hit in 2025, but Final Fantasy XIV Mobile. So it has been announced that this mobile port by Lightspeed is the studio, is in development. And there has been beta gameplay going on, and you can watch Twitch streamers that have played the beta mobile Final Fantasy XIV. It's a mobile version of Final Fantasy XIV. It is not a mobile client for the existing Final Fantasy XIV universe.
Quite a distinction.
So it will not be cross-platform. You will not be playing with your existing characters. The content will not be exactly what you see in Final Fantasy XIV, but it'll be close, is what it sounds like so far. And
it'll be another way to live in that world.
Yes. And for the markets especially that love the mobile MMOs, it could potentially be ginormous. It could be huge. So we'll see where that's going to go, and if it provides an opportunity for people that just love Final Fantasy XIV to start over in a mobile universe, but to be able to play it there too. I never really liked playing MMOs on mobile. Have you ever tried it, Sema? Have you tried to do a couple?
I can't even imagine.
It's
the things I do on mobile are just so specific.
If I lived a mobile life and wasn't so connected to my desktops,
yes,
if I was a student and I was always commuting and going back and forth and sitting in the back of a lecture hall, boy, if I had mobile gaming back in the day when I was in college, that would have potentially continued to ruin my education, but save my sanity. I was a good student in that I got A's in all my classes in engineering, but I did it by just knowing how computer science and engineering worked and not having to listen to lectures. Because I commuted to school. I lived in the suburbs of Chicago and commuted downtown because I got a scholarship to downtown Chicago, University of Illinois, Chicago. I got a full ride scholarship there for running. So I was not going to not take that. Did that, got my electrical engineering degree from there. But I would stay up late playing video games, and I was playing like Ultima, and this was even before Ultima Online. I was playing like the old Ultima games or whatever I was doing. And then I would go to commute downtown, drive downtown for an hour, get to the lecture hall, and then fall asleep. So
Right.
I woke up early, I commuted, I got to the lecture hall, and I would sleep through it, and I would have pen, pencil, and paper notes where I would, like my pen would be, like pencil would be like dribbling off the page. I think I still have some of those notebooks saved. And like 80% of lectures I would go to, I would be asleep through the whole thing. So why did I even go?
I know.
If I had mobile gaming, I would have been in the back playing games. Maybe I could have gone to sleep early.
The main reason I was able to graduate is that where I went to school, UCLA, they paid graduate students to sit in the classes and take notes, and then they you could subscribe to the notes. And I'm like, I rarely went to class.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's more and more like, was it Better Off Dead? No, it was Real Genius, where the various students started bringing like tape recorders and putting it on their desk until the point where the professor was speaking to just a room full of tape recorders. And then the next scene cut back. The professor is a tape recorder. He set up a tape recorder to play into their tape recorders. And that's how it ended up.
But I wouldn't, if I had to do over again, I wouldn't do it that way because I was young and didn't have any whatever. Right. I put in the least amount of effort. But it's a lot of money and a lot of time, and it's a huge opportunity. So kids, don't do it the way
don't do it. Yeah, take advantage of it, and you're gonna miss it when it's gone. To soak it in, soak it up, get everything you can out of it, get every experience you can, and every bit of knowledge because you'll use it someday somewhere. It's cool. Next up, back on track. Let's see, we've got a couple more of these. Yeah, I think we've got, and they're going to get faster and faster as we go because we've played these less and less, and there's less to talk about. But this one does have both my interest, and Stask, who's in the chat room, I think just hit max level in New World Aeternum. This is one of those MMOs that is now trying to not call itself an MMO. They're trying to call themselves like an action role-playing game. But they're hardcore. It's definitely an MMO. It's squarely in what we would consider a traditional MMO space. They have a roadmap out. It looks really interesting. And they've broken it up into groupings. They've said, here's what's coming in sort of like the next season of releases. They've said, here's what's in development. And then they've said, here's what's in exploration. I like this. I like that breakdown. It kind of gives you an idea of what's
I like that too.
Coming now. The in exploration, I love to see. Because maybe that won't even come in 2025.
Here's what we're thinking about. Yeah.
But it gives you something to look forward to and a good view that this is a well-supported game and a well-supported platform. It's tough, I'm sure, for anyone to put out a communication roadmap, and plenty of studios have gotten burned by that, by like whatever they've got in here, nude trade skill. And if they don't end up with a nude trade skill, or the nude trade skill is one that's of something that people don't like, then why did they even announce it early? They could have just like slowly developed it, see what it looked like, revamp it as it went along, scrap it if people end up not liking it. But now that they've got it on the in exploration, it sets expectations, which is hard. Anyway, one of the ones that caught your eye, I know, Sema, was the idea of this seasonal servers that they're going to spin up, where you roll a new character and it's got quote unquote twisted mechanics.
Yes, that did get my interest.
So
I feel like
Yeah.
That was sort of like the whole remix thing for WoW and other various
Hmm.
games I've played, and I just like the idea of doing things sort of upside down. Like, what was the game we used to play? It's Lotro that you can play as the mobs, right? Sometimes, right?
Yes, monster play.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sort of like more of a PvP zone, and you're limited to that, but you were still leveling up your monster characters in that PvP zone. The Atmores or whatever it is you're playing. Forgot what it's called. But yeah, that's cool. But as you said, the idea of the remix and Diablo, for example, each of their seasons, it's got a different theme and a different twist. And this time it's all the zombies are on fire and you get fire abilities. And, so you start up new characters in the season and they usually have a little bit of a different mechanic, a little bit of a different of sort of like the borrowed power kind of mechanics. It seems like a good idea. A lot of people are questioning it of where do you really think you're going? We just want our MMO. We want more MMO in our MMO. But it seems like, especially with them trying to be more of this ARPG kind of model, it seems like an opportunity. I'll be interested to see if they can make it work. So that they've got then a whole bunch of other interesting things that are core to the game and are more of the MMO and the MMO, which is a new Outpost Rush map, which is sort of like a PvP map. They want to be developing more things with the way wars work, including what's called pickup wars, which is in development. Because the way the war system works right now is the different companies, which are the guilds, there's big guilds which own kind of like the zones, and there's a limited number of zones. There's only like a dozen zones in the game. So the company will own the zone, and some big companies will own like 4 or 5 zones, and then another company can declare war on that zone. And there's a little bit of a process to build up sort of like the reputation so that you can challenge and then declare war. And then a war happens. And each side in the war, the challenging company and the defending company, get 50 slots. And they can fill that with their own players or with outside players. But as you hear me talk about that, if you're not familiar with the game, you can probably envision a system where top guild, their top 50 players, they're playing all the wars. And if you're not in those top war band guilds, you don't get to play. And that is kind of what happens in some ways. So this idea of pickup wars, where let the ownership of the zones and the towns and the development of that system continue, because it is a big part of the content of the game and a drive of the game. It's one of the ways that the game was actually founded, the founding vision of the game. But if I could, as a independent player, a non-affiliated player, just jump into a pickup war and experience it, that sounds great. That sounds like a really good idea. So I'm glad that they're in development on that kind of idea of a system.
I love that idea. Every game should do that. I mean, that's like the Guild Wars thing.
Right. Every game that has
Rift did that.
ring-fenced content or limited content, they should provide a way for everyone to experience that content.
Yeah.
This is another way that I'm afraid that, well, we'll get to it. Ashes of Creation might not have learned that lesson yet. And we're going to have to wait years for it to release and then years for them to learn the lesson until they design the ability for pickup wars kinds of concepts into that game too. Other things that are in development that people are excited about. One that is interesting, which isn't fully described yet under endgame progression improvements, is what they're calling wraparound XP. And this is another thing I love the idea of, that MMOs that do it well provide an opportunity for you to, as you hit max level, for there still to be progression of some kind. Like a Paragon type system. ESO does this quite of an interesting way. To have some place for that RPG grind of XP to continue to expand in the future. I like that. It doesn't have to be unlimited levels. It doesn't have to be extreme, power, because you don't want big power disparities, especially because you've got like PvP and wars to worry about and balance and that kind of thing. But some sort of like Paragon type system, I think every MMO should have that as well. Global storage works pretty well, but global storage would help. Each town has a separate storage box, but you can access each of them from more places now. But having it just all be global would probably be interesting as well. Barbershop, as people want to have a barbershop capability. Yeah, they should have that in. Again, I really like the art style. There's a lot of cosmetics. It's a buy once. There's no subscription for New World. There is a cash shop for cosmetics, and it's almost just cosmetics and that kind of thing. Being able to have more of a barbershop and have that cosmetic system. Why did you not do this sooner? You want people that are playing dress up and paying to play dress up to have more of those capabilities. Next up, Fallout 76, another game I played quite a bit of in 2024. Yeah, I played a ton of this. I was deep into it to the point where I paid for their battle pass, their, Fallout 76 Plus or whatever it is, Fallout Plus, and played through and completed one of their battle passes in 2024. Then fell out of it because there's just so many other things to play. They are going to continue to do what they do and what they do best. And they have been doing a great job in continuing to develop both the seasons. So now they'll be moving into season 19 in 2025. And the season is like the battle pass and the rewards and everything that goes with it. But it comes with a little bit of a theme. And then there's often a little bit of story content that's associated with it. But around that, they've continued to release more additional new content. And that will be coming this year as well. One of the biggest things that everybody got really excited about that they announced, which is still on the roadmap in March, it's coming in March for the season 20 update, is you will be able to unlock ghouls as a playable race for your characters. So you can be a ghoul. And that is, of course, thanks to the Fallout 76, the Fallout TV show and Walton Goggins' rendition of the ghoul in that TV show.
Right.
Which is just, we need more of that. Is that season 2 coming in 2025?
Oh, I don't know, but I know it is coming.
It is coming. I would love for it to be coming in 2025 or sooner.
I love the aesthetic of Fallout.
Right. It's such a great, unique style. It's like a zombie game, but because they did that interesting thing and have been able to sort of like carry it forward and make it into its own thing, where they took the retro future 1950s look and brought it forward into the actual future. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They brought it forward.
So Dent in the chat room says late 2025, early 2026 for the Fallout TV show. That's not soon enough. Ella, Walton, get moving. Get working. Another game that our pals in Alea Iacta Est really likes to play is Lord of the Rings Online. And this is another one that they continue to do a good job of developing content within the constraints of what now is quite an aging platform. One of the things
I feel like LOTRO is sort of outside of the flow of time.
I think so too. And in this way that we're seeing the demand for classic versions of any, people have called for classic SWTOR. SWTOR hasn't changed that much from
well, no, I think what people want is, they've been calling for it for a long time, but I think what people want is like the early way that gearing and combat worked.
Right. But they do have a 2025 development roadmap.
Remember cunning as a stat? And
that kind of thing, and hybrid builds and that kind of thing. I could see people being interested for that style of gameplay to come back. But people don't need, as we said, as we're seeing with old school RuneScape and the millions of people that are playing those games. You don't necessarily need, if you updated graphics, you don't need Unreal 5 if you've got enough depth and content in your system for people to
Right.
make their imaginations go wild.
How fantastic the graphics look is just a data point.
Right. Right. And maybe a potential hook for some people.
Right.
Maybe irrelevant in a lot of ways. But what Lord of the Rings Online does is story content, and it's stories around the timelines of the books and potentially even past the end of the timelines of the books. So where the story ends up and what they can do and additional stories they can tell around the outside of what happens in Lord of the Rings is really interesting, and they've done a good job with that. So that will continue. It does look like we're going to be getting another new expansion pack this year, at least. And then they've got a bunch of things on their roadmap around things like quality of life, the way mounts work, a new instance, a new raid. So be interested to see how they continue to expand on Lord of the Rings Online. In that same class, so there's 3 games, well, actually 2 that are really in that class, and Guild Wars, I would say, would potentially be even a little more popular than those 2. But the other one I think is sort of like on that same sort of development schedule and life cycle as Lord of the Rings is Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
Star Trek Online, again, great game. It's still like that old style, older engine, but new content continuing to be released, new chapters. And every time there's a new Star Trek series or movie or any story content or the animated series, bits of that end up as chapters and stories in Star Trek Online.
The characters and the ships.
Cosmetically at least, if not full story voiced by the actors from the TV shows and that kind of thing as well. So we did get a bunch of that in 2024, and we'll continue to get that in 2025 as well, I'm sure.
It says there is indeed a new ESD coming soon.
Yeah, so this post is something that I saw, and there was a dev interview that you can look at. So ESD is the Earth Space Dock. So this is basically one of the main hubs of the game. You can think of it as the Stormwind of Star Trek Online. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool place. It's a place where your story leads you to. It's also a place then where you can do a lot of like the trade stuff and ships, get your ships outfitted and all of that kind of thing. A new Earth Space Dock does sound really fun. And one of those ways that all of these games, both Lord of the Rings, even Star Wars: The Old Republic is in the middle of this, can, along the way, within the constraints of their engine and their platform, modernize the game, which I think is cool. So yeah, I'll be interested to see where they go with that. And then the last one on our main list is Guild Wars 2. Oh, cookies. Every site has got their own cookie thing. Guild Wars 2. They're in the middle of a content release called Janthier Wilds. And it looks like for 2025, it's mostly going to be the continued content chapters on top of Janthier Wilds, along with some additional MMO bits added in around that as well. I did see a note in some of the what's coming, which is interesting, is that they are adding a new 10-person raid. And as they've listed here on their page, it's their first new raid in 5 years. So getting back to some of that core MMO content. Broadsword. Look at how exciting that looks. So why don't you guys do an operation? This is a really cool MMO.
It is. I love the look of it.
It's very evergreen in a really cool way, in that anytime I go back to it, my character still works. It still exists. I might have to like respec some things, but all of the progression after you sort of get to max level, which happens relatively quickly in Guild Wars 2, tends to be horizontal. It's like you can get new weapons and you can get new things and you can progress through the content and you can unlock new zones and play and get more mounts and those kinds of things. But you're not, you're not 20 levels behind. You're not like out of the loop in that you can jump right in and be playing all of the things with your character typically. And I really, really like that about Guild Wars. It does make it just really does feel evergreen in that you can come back to it and not feel like you've lost out or missed out.
Right. Right.
I wonder if that makes it a little less sticky than other games. Like people aren't worried about ducking out, and then in that way they don't have any fear of missing out. But I appreciate it.
I don't know, because I feel like negative reinforcement that way isn't what makes people want to come back.
No.
Or be sticky. And like we were talking about how there's different progression systems for once you hit end game. In WoW, which I think you're kind of talking about in a way, in WoW, once you hit end game, the progression system definitely is the gear.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take 6 months off from WoW, when you come back, your gear is going to be the limiting factor for you to participate with in the most current end game. So, but what WoW does about that is they make catch up mechanisms.
Yeah.
What Guild Wars does is your gear's fine already, and you just miss out on whatever the horizontal leveling was.
Yes, and the cool new versions of weapons and things like that you could have been
getting. Which
is
also sort of how Star Wars: The Old Republic does it.
Right. Much less of that vertical progression, much more horizontal. So that wraps up sort of like those big ones. So let's stop there and just to at least say thank you. We're going to go on we'll do a quick run through after this sponsor segment, but I did want to stop and say thank you everyone who listens, like we usually like to do. This podcast is brought to you by Garden and a Goat. We did have a lot of things going on in game development. It was a little bit of a time off for us, but really,
the holidays.
Yeah, really not that much. A lot of things did happen. We're still getting a lot of core systems in place, so maybe we'll talk about more about that in the future weeks. But it is brought to you by Garden and a Goat from Contemplation Games. We're going to see more of that in 2025 as well. Also brought to you by Alea Acta Est, our guild, aie-guild.org. And of course, brought to you by all of you out there watching, listening. We had a pretty big group today in the chat room. That's really fun. Good to see. And hope that everyone is going to be joining us in all of these games in 2025 as well. This was
come play with us.
Fun talking about in the first episode of the year, the 2025, the big game titles, like the big AAA titles that are coming out. This episode is really fun to go look at the MMO content. And I kind of want to, so Sema, I haven't broached this topic with you yet, but I kind of want to next week or the week after do a 2025 roadmap for survival games. So maybe we'll do that too, because there is a bunch of stuff like Enshrouded. Is that going to hit 1.0?
Yeah.
Valheim is probably going to hit 1.0 in 2025. So we've got a lot to talk about there. But now let's talk a little bit about the future.
Difficult to see. Always in motion is the future.
Always in motion is the future. Dent in the chat room. I'm going to mention Dune right now because Dune sort of crosses that boundary. Dune is definitely going to be on both of the lists. So Dune is an interesting one. So Dune, they are talking about and they are calling an MMO in a lot of places, even the game developers. So I've got that on my list of the 4 big ones that are sort of like future early access, potentially playable in the near term, and potentially, like in Dune's case, maybe coming in 2025. So Dune Awakening, I am super, super excited and interested in Dune Awakening. That is one that I have been waiting for since I heard that it was going to be announced and was potentially possibly a thing. I cannot wait for Dune. We've talked about it multiple times. We're going to be talking about it a lot this year, so we don't need to go into too much depth. But the elevator pitch for the people that aren't familiar is that it's an alternate, almost like a multiverse version of the Dune universe, where Paul was never born, and instead, if you remember what was supposed to happen from the Dune books, the very first book, Jessica, Paul's mom, she was instructed by the Bene Gesserit to birth a daughter. That was what she was supposed to do. And then the daughter was supposed to be then betrothed to House Harkonnen at some point, and that was supposed to be the evolution of the Kwisatz Haderach. Anyway, she defied her orders from her order, and that's where Paul came into the scene, and Paul disrupted the plans of the Bene Gesserit. Anyway, what then ends up happening in Dune Awakening is the idea is the story, the universe that you're playing in, and it's a survival MMO. You get to play your own story. But the universe that you're playing in is one in which Jessica did not defy that order, Paul does not exist, and the daughter was born. So House Harkonnen and House Atreides are now jointly still contesting Dune throughout your playthrough and in this universe where you're playing Dune Awakening. So what you've got going on here is the opportunity to be aligning with multiple factions. There's sub-factions within those overarching factions. So there's that kind of like faction play going on that you'll be able to sort of play within and against, but it's also survival. And there's these big additional zones. You'll be playing in sort of like a protected zone where you'll be able to be like doing the hardcore survival things where you can't be in the desert too long. You got to make sure you've got water to drink. You got to get food to eat. You'll be building a base. You'll be constructing your weapons, constructing your ornithopter, all of those kinds of survival things. That's the part that I can't wait for. That's the part that I love of the genre of sort of like the survival building games these days. The other part that really gets MMO-ish is there are massive numbers of players. There are player hubs where people can play together. And then there is the deep desert. And what happens in the deep desert is the massively multiplayer area where all of many people can all play together and play against each other. So the deep desert is also open PvP. In theory, it will be giant enough where you can be off out of the way, but then like see people if they're coming and like leave an area if like a bigger guild is like coming to take over an area. What's that?
Whatever.
Best laid plans. So that's what they say. So that's where I have some trepidation around it as well, is if that does work how they say, then maybe that's fine. If it doesn't, then maybe I just won't play in the deep desert.
I mean, it makes sense that PvP should be a major part of a game that's about factions that are at war.
You sure? But if too much of the content is locked behind
no, I agree. I totally
dudes agree. That like take over the deep desert, then that makes it unfun.
Right.
And
I totally agree.
And then you get into that situation that we talked about from New World, where if the wars are limited to these big guilds that take over all of the zones, can you learn the lesson so that you can provide a way for people that are solo or in small groups that aren't going to get stomped on by these big guilds for them to experience the content as well? And if you don't, then they're just not going to play. Like I ended up quitting Eve in that way because all of the once I got a taste of how interesting it was to play in Nullsec and Eve, but realized you can't play in Nullsec and Eve unless you're part of, one of the giant elite guild alliances. It just was unfun.
I mean, kind of unrelated, but you made me think of it, is I was watching something on YouTube this week and I got an ad for Eve Online.
I didn't even put Eve Online on this list. I didn't check in on their roadmap. I don't know why that slipped my mind. I kind of feel like it's just like a thing that continues to do its own thing out there, and they're never gonna sort of like change.
Yeah, I totally get that. Like it's technically an MMO, but also its own thing.
Yeah, yeah. It almost exists outside of the MMO. It's its own genre. It's really interesting. Okay, so that's Dune. That's the biggest one I'm most excited about. Others that I have played and probably will play in 2025 that are sort of like early access or continuing to be early access or some version of access is Ashes of Creation. Boy, Ashes of Creation is in an interesting place. So they finally have gotten to the point where their open alphas are now available. You do have to buy in to play the alphas, but the alphas are definitely there and playable, and a lot of people are having a lot of fun with it. Some of the group content is starting to resolve itself into something that you can see where it's headed. The idea of caravans and defending those caravans and escorting them for profit is something that the big guilds are doing, and how deep the crafting systems are. This is another one that is in an interesting place, though, in the same way that Star Citizen is, and we're going to talk about that next, is when is this ever going to come out? Nobody knows. This is definitely not coming out in 2025. Is it going to come out in the next 10 years? We'll see. So we'll see where that's headed. It's definitely playable. This one seems to me to be more realistic that would come out in the next few years.
Yeah, I feel like it is too. I don't know why.
I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. It's still very rough around the edges. And there's been a little bit of drama around how rough it is around the edges right now and what people expected the alpha to be and what the alpha is actually ending up being. The head of the studio, Steven, is very active in the sort of like the social media, social networking, and relatively open in talking about where it is and where it's not. There has been a couple high profile streamers, one in particular, that ended up publishing big videos that saying they're scamming us. The whole thing's a scam. You got, they lied. You lying liars. You lied. Steven has replied to that. There's a bunch of that drama going on right now. The drama's having two effects. One is it's making people concerned about the future of the game. A second is that I've seen relatively often is it's making people interested in the game and buying in. So Steven's been very open about what they have showed in the past, where it actually is in development. Like the desert wasn't as developed as you said it was, and this is a scam, it doesn't exist, and you're smoke and mirrors. That's all you showed us. So in theory, it is in development, and hopefully it will come out. It's another one, though, we'll talk about, we have talked about in the past, that their goals, their vision isn't aligned as much with what I would want out of an MMO. And if it doesn't end up in that place, like PvP is too intrinsic to the world, and you're just going to get stomped on by big guilds and groups, or you're going to get locked out of places. There's no multi-tagging, and the big group takes over an area and you can't play. And too much is locked behind what only the elite dudes can do, then that's going to be unfun, and I'm not going to want to participate long term. I'll play it. I'll have some fun in it. I'll explore the world. But, if I can't, unless I'm
right,
and unless I know life in the game and I'm part of a group of people that are dedicated to know lifing the game, can't explore that new content, long term, it's going to be a no-go for me. Star Citizen is the other one that's sort of like in that most of the will it ever release state, and yet it's incredible development. It's an incredibly frustrating game in that they're inventing this new game technology, and if it would ever release, it would be the greatest MMO release, just technically. But will it ever release?
I think part of the reason why I feel like Star Citizen is farther away is because it feels like there's little to zero pressure on them.
Correct. There is no pressure on them to ever release. They make all of their money right now
already. Yeah.
It through whales buying ships for the game. So the way you play Star Citizen is you buy a ship package for the game, and you can buy multiple, and you buy the ships with cash up to $1,000 for a ship, and people pay this. They buy ships for $1,000. There are people. There's like a class of like reward tier. I think the highest tier, the concierge tier, it's like $10,000 or something like that. And there's tons of people in that tier. They've paid $10,000 over the years to support Star Citizen and buy new ships, buy these big capital ships and things like that. But when you play it, and you can play it, it's both incredibly frustrating because every new release, they add new technology to the game that is very foundational and very great, but breaks everything. And then you can't even do the simplest things anymore. And people are finding that right now with the new 4.0 release, which is in its first couple months month and a half of being live now. Or maybe it's only been about like 3 or 4 weeks. But you just read the forums, and it's, people are saying it's just, nothing works. I can't deliver packages. I keep getting disconnected, blah, blah, blah. But when it does work, yeah, it's as Saturn's saying in the chat room, one of the most immersive, high quality MMO or just game experiences you will ever have. And the fact that it is an MMO and will be persistent, and you'll be able to have outposts that you build and ships that you maintain. Everything is physicalized and actualized. If you want to change, if you need to reload your weapon, you physically pull the clip out of the weapon, stick it physically into your belt, and you can see it there in your belt. You grab another one out of your belt, and you physically put it into the weapon. And that's everything. You want a new scope on your weapon? You physically take the scope off of your weapon, get a new one, and slot it on. All the ships work this way. If you take a missile into the right stabilizer of your plane, land your ship, good to get outside and walk around, you will see that damage from that missile where it hit on that side of your plane, your spaceship. Anyway, beautiful, brilliant, if it ever releases. And as you said, Sema, they have no pressure. And when you've got unlimited budget and unlimited time, the scope is fluid and will grow to fill that space. And that's what they continue to do. They have the single player version of this game, which is called Squadron 42.
In their defense, though, I just want to say for the people who are playing it under these terms, they're loving it. They're having so much fun. So
as soon as 4.0 stabilizes, I'm gonna play it. So potentially next month or whenever gets stable enough, I'm gonna jump back in because it's brilliant when it works. There's not enough of the end game that is in there yet to sustain me playing it long term. But I'll definitely jump in there and experience it. And then we are waiting to see if there's single player of this game, which is story and voiced by giant actors, and which in theory has been in polishing mode for the last 6 months, at least, is Squadron 42. That single player game has been co-developed and sharing development systems. It will be interesting to see if that gets released in 2025 because they've been promising that for a long time. Yeah, so those are those big ones that, you can either play or should be coming out in 2025 that will be interesting. And then I've got a list. Let's finish up then with a list of wishful thinking MMOs. And there's a good game. Who was Lucky Ghost? There's a game YouTuber who did a really good job in this video of talking about most of them.
Yeah, fun to watch. Yeah.
Names off the big ones that have been announced to being in development. So of these, we can all sort of dream that this will be the WoW killers of the world. And I don't think any of them are actually saying we're going to be a WoW killer. They would be dumb to say that.
Right.
But this is what people wish will be their forever MMO of the future. And with those kind of expectations, how can you go wrong? How can you be disappointed? So EverQuest 3 it was confirmed that it is in development. It was announced, I believe, at PAX East in 2024 that it's in development, and they've been hiring roles, and people are developing EverQuest 3. So that is a fan favorite of the old days that I think would be interesting.
Of all of these, this is the one that just makes me, I want to hear them talk about what they are hoping for. Why are they doing it?
Yes. With all of these, it's interesting to hear those. And I haven't dived too deep into it, but what I would expect to hear is we want to bring back that old school feeling, the times when we were.
But specifically these guys, they've tried to do that before.
Yeah, they have. Why do you think it's going to work this time? Just from a project management organization perspective.
What are you bringing to the table? Yeah.
And then, and what's going to make you successful this time, and what's going to make it stand out or be different than all of the other ones of these on this list of 8 that are
when they tried
vision.
to do something, when they tried to do something different, EverQuest Next, they couldn't even get that out the door.
Right. And I wanted EverQuest Next to be the foundation for EverQuest 3. It was a voxel world.
Oh, EverQuest Next, that's right. Yeah, they did get we both played that for a little bit.
Right. And it was the voxel world and the voxel building that I really liked. There's another game that I liked that was anytime games start adding voxels, I like.
They got to a certain point and they just said, no, we're not doing it.
Right. They couldn't deliver. It was too daunting of a task to turn it into a full MMO, and they didn't feel like the platform would go, so they stopped. And EverQuest Next, the part that was in beta and playable, was a sort of a side project that was supposed to be the foundation, and they never went forward with the full game.
And then EverQuest 2, which was their, update of EverQuest. I mean, I don't know if it's particularly right, but this guy in the video that you mentioned said that the old servers that run the old EverQuest outnumber players in terms of people who play EverQuest 2. So
same thing with old school RuneScape and new RuneScape.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a thing.
Right. And I don't have a good feeling about Brighter Shores for that very reason.
I've got a bad feeling about this. Horizon Online. This one I'm excited about because I love this universe. I love the gameplay. I like the style. I like Alloy.
I want to see the movie.
It's just an exciting. It's an exciting
the Horizon Zero Dawn movie.
Is there?
TV show. Yeah. There's going to be.
Who's making that? Is that? Is it a series? All right. Chat room.
I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, you look it up and let us know. I'll finish talking about Horizons Online. It's just what you would expect, and it's only rumored to be in development right now, so nothing in 2025, or maybe we'll get some glimpses. But imagine everything that when you play the Horizon games, being able to have an MMO version of that. I think I would love that. I really like the tech dinos, the robot animal, robot dino world. I love Ark. We'll talk about that probably next week. I've been playing a ton of Ark lately because they released a new map. And this version of the world is called Extinction, this map. It has the robot versions of some of the mutated dinos. So I want to get my tech dinos because that's even cooler. What's cooler than a dino? A robot dino. This is me. I'm such a child. So there's that in development. A Warhammer MMO is in theory in development as well. New studio called Jackalyptic Games has come together with veterans of the gaming industry and MMOs. I think the head of the studio did a lot of work on Neverwinter Nights. Fans of the Warhammer universe would probably be really excited. And if they time it right, this could be interesting for them if they can get a workable MMO going. Since we haven't seen anything yet, it's going to be a tough road. With the Warhammer TV series in development, it would be a great time for a Warhammer MMO. But there's always Warhammer games as well. There's always people really interested and having fun with the Warhammer universe. I'm sure people would have fun with a Warhammer MMO, however it works. The Space Marine game that came out in 2024 was highly acclaimed and by all accounts, very, very good. This is actually footage from it right here. I think that's what we're seeing. So fun game. Some other, I think we joked about it. Warhammer has no problems putting their IP, their logo on anything. Like,
right.
We're going to reskin Candy Crush as Warhammer Candy Crush. Sure, go ahead, do it. That's great. Take the license. Take the copyright. They will take that licensing. But it's cool universe. The lore is amazing. Could be fun. So we'll see if that one happens. Arcade 2, which has now been rebranded and renamed in the development phase as Arcade Chronicles. This, another one, I believe it's Unreal 5. Looks really high quality, but it's another one. I think you've sort of said this, Sema. How are you going to stand out? How are you going to be different if Ashes of Creation, Unreal 5, big MMO, if everybody's like developing their modern engine MMO, are you going to be able to compete? But maybe you are.
Yeah, you could take the trailers from all of them and splice them in and out, and you wouldn't even know you were looking at different games.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're starting to notice. And that's one of the things people criticize about Unreal 5 development. I think it's early in the life cycle of Unreal games, where right now people and game studios are doing too much of just jumping into the engine and making use of Unreal 5 in its vanilla state. And as such, a lot of things are looking pretty Unreal 5-ish and blending together and visually. If the industry takes advantage of what it has to offer as an engine and does the hard work of developing their own assets and art styles, you can get something that's like New World, which will set it apart. And I think you're right, Sema. Too many of these are just taking mega scans and, here's rocky ground, and rocky ground looks like rocky ground. And if everybody's rocky ground just looks like rocky ground, and everybody's oak tree looks like an oak tree, looks like a real oak tree, everybody's stuff is going to look the same. So they're going to need to step outside if they want to differentiate visually. Second, all of them seem to be saying everybody seems to like grab a hook, and most of the hooks seem to be like, yeah, remember when MMOs relied on group play? That's what we're going to do. Another one will say, remember when MMOs were about the journey and it took a long time to level up and it was hard? That's what we're going to do. Everybody seems to be hearkening back in a lot of ways. Not all of them, but those ones I'm interested to see if they can deliver and make that work for them. But then you and I were talking in the pre-show, Sema, and I think you had a good point. With 8 billion people on the planet, do you need to compete with WoW, or can you find a new audience? And I think it's possible to find a new audience and to have people that live in your game.
So the Horizon Zero Dawn film is a collaboration between PlayStation Studios and Columbia Pictures. And it was just announced like in January, so this year.
Cool. I'm there for it. That would be great. It's a really great storyline too, and Ella is a really great character.
Partially why is they're trying, because the game was just so popular last year, just really took off. And that's not the only one they're doing. They're doing a couple other games, but that seems like a really promising one.
Yep.
I would rather, I want to see that before I play the game.
Next one.
Just because I have enough games in my life.
Oh, yeah. Although playing the game, that one in particular is kind of like watching a movie, although a little more actiony. You could set it to low settings, and it's much less of the action. But it's definitely a story-driven RPG, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is.
Next one has come in and out of consciousness of, is it being developed, is it not, by Amazon, the Lord of the Rings next-gen MMO that they've been talking about, and in theory now is again back on the table and is being developed. This you could think of as the same studio and the same technology that makes New World work, and to do Lord of the Rings universe implementation within that platform.
Right.
Sounds great to me.
To
I
the
want
extent
more things to be
where,
developed in
no,
that
they're
engine.
saying things like they added swimming to New World, so that means Lord of the Rings MMO could have swimming.
Okay. It's an awesome platform. I really like the quality of the Lumberyard engine that they've got there. It's also interesting in that it is Lumberyard and it's not Unreal. It's bold of them to have an engine that they're developing on their own, although Ubisoft has Snowdrop. It provides them some opportunity to set themselves apart, even if they share a lot of like even assets between the way New World works and the way the Lord of the Rings work. It at least won't be the same assets that all the Unreal games are sharing, if they do share. And then
I'm curious about this one, and when you look at the footage, it doesn't remind me of Lord of the Rings at all.
No, that's all new. That was New World footage.
Oh,
So,
was it? Okay.
Yeah, there is no footage for. I think these last 3 or 4, there's no footage at all. So,
okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, the Lucky Ghost, the YouTuber said.
But I could totally see that the Lord of the Rings, the world of the Lord of the Rings has room for that. Like you could. Yeah. I mean, if you could just like play your whole character in the Shire and never go to Mordor.
Right.
I mean, that's a possibility.
And it's a strong enough IP that it could carry, again, even if it was sort of like a WoW clone or a clone of the existing Lord of the Rings game or whatever. It's one of those where this IP, I feel, is strong enough to support wanting to just like live in that kind of world with your friends for a while.
Maybe. Yeah. Unless they have a lot of PvP.
Unless it's forced PvP, then we're out. Listen up.
Right.
Which was not really a thing in Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was not about PvP. It was about fighting the monsters, and it was about uniting and unifying.
Right.
So, and the Lord of the Rings online game, the PvP, if you want to go play PvP, you have to fight against monsters, and half the players need to go be monsters. Right. You can't fight other players, which I think was really cool. It was a really cool.
Well, they don't say things like, you can opt out of PvP because you could see someone trying to kill you from a long ways off.
Right. Or what other games try to go, which is, there's a place for the non-PvPers. You can like sit in the base and, press the craft button over and over.
Right.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Support your friends.
Good times. Well, if you're going to be a gatherer, you just hire PvPers to protect you and you go out on a big excursion. Yeah, that's never going to happen. Then the last 3, which nobody knows, this is not footage associated with it. League of Legends as the MMO, the Riot MMO, in theory, is still on the table and in development. Who knows? This could be, decades off as well. We're going to have to wait to see. This is a universe and an IP and game development studios that have the capability to do something brilliant and original and interesting. Whether or not it manifests in that way, well,
I mean, I feel like there must be a reason why Ghostcrawler left this effort to make his own effort.
That is also interesting, which leads us to the next one, which is Ghostcrawler's game that he is making. So yeah, he did leave the development of the League of Legends MMO at the time, and it seemed like there was even potentially a little bit of a shakeup there, and maybe some shifting of the vision and retooling of the team. But that would be interesting to see where that is now and what actually happened there. But outside of that, Ghostcrawler did leave that team, started up his own studio called Fantastic Pixel Castle, and said, we're going to make our own MMO with blackjack and hookers. No.
Kind of. I mean, he didn't say that, but I mean, he basically said, like, for instance, we're not going to have any like generic warrior character. And I'm like,
right.
Okay, whatever.
Yes. So a lot of like, this is showing World of Warcraft footage instead of, because obviously we haven't seen much from what they're producing just yet, but a lot of bold claims and bold direction. A lot of we're going to do, we're going to mix shards together in interesting ways. We're going to have persistent worlds and non-persistent worlds. They're going to be called the red shards and the blue shards. And so those are going to work differently. Classes are going to work differently. Combat's going to work differently. I like the idea of let's do something new. Let's shake it up. Let's not just have like the next WoW clone and skin it with an IP and call it a game. However, that's also really hard. The reason that Final Fantasy and WoW really work and have worked for, decades now is because that formula works. So it's a big hill to climb. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm interested in the innovation. So we'll have to see what happens. And if we can get even new ideas, even if it's not like wildly successful, but new ideas come out of it that shake up the industry a little bit, I think that could be positive. And then the last one I think that everyone knows the least about is ZeniMax taking their skills from developing Elder Scrolls Online for so many years now, 10 years, and saying, we're going to do a brand new MMO, new IP, new story of its own, and make that into a game that we will now launch someday in the future. We don't know about it. We don't know where it's going. We don't know where that's at, but that's another one on the list. That is quite a bit. A lot of fun things.
A lot. Yeah.
A lot of fun things in 2025 that exist. New things that are playable and tryable in 2025, and some that may launch, like the Dune one. And then some things to watch for news, watch for glimpses of the future, see if we're going to get any previews or betas or even some early access potentially for any of these things in 2025. Probably not with those last set that we mentioned, but if we do, great. I would love to see the ideas. I would love to see what's developing, though, just because that's fun to dream about and think about. I want new things to happen. I want a shakeup in the MMO space. I want to figure out where the MMOs of the future could end up being, or learn that we've plateaued, that we've done everything that an MMO can do. And maybe there's other genres that will continue to develop. I think survival games is one where the survival MMO might be a sort of like a new place for innovation to happen, like the Dune game is doing. And maybe traditional MMOs just are what they are and are really good and will continue to live, but maybe not innovate because they're what they need to be. We'll see. All right. We went a little bit long today, Sema. Wow, we went really long. All right. So let's wrap it up. I was going to ask you if anything else, but nothing else. You're not allowed
nothing else
to have anything else. So let's close it out. That's it for today. Maybe we're going to talk about survival games or other games. In fact, Sema's been playing another fun game, a little more of a cozy, small game that maybe we'll talk about in next week or the week after. So stay tuned for that.
Maybe, yeah.
But right now, we are done for today. All the feed and subscribe links are on newoverlords.com, and our videos up on YouTube/newoverlords. Please come chat with us in our Discord at newoverlords.com/Discord. You can also follow on all the social networks, and we keep you up to date there too. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.